In July 1945, as the world celebrated the end of the war, an inexplicable event occurred off the coast of Argentina. Two German submarines emerged from nowhere, defying all laws of physics and operational autonomy. But that was only the beginning. Declassified Zero archives and modern NASA data from 2026 all point to one location: Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. There, beneath kilometers of ice, lies what for decades was considered a myth. Massive macrostructures, geothermal anomalies, and traces of technologies far ahead of their time. Discoveries of the last decade only confirm that we are dealing with a carefully planned operation. In 2022, an 80-meter German U-boat, deliberately scuttled after a covert landing, was finally identified off the coast of Necochea. And in May 2025, over 80 boxes of secret protocols and financial transactions were discovered in the basements of the Supreme Court of Argentina, revealing a network of agents that had been operating in South America for decades. But the most disturbing data comes from beneath the ice sheet. Deep water scanners from the Icebridge mission have recorded geometrically regular objects at a depth of 120 meters, matching the logistical schematics of Project Valkyrie 2. Why have world leaders suddenly been making frequent trips to this desolate, icy wasteland? Today, we will piece together facts that have been suppressed for 80 years. The truth is beginning to thaw through the ice, and stopping this process is no longer possible. Part 2. The Chronicles of Discovery, 2015 to 2026. Phase 1. Documentation, 2025. Declassification, 1,850 plus classified files released in May 2025. Discovery, Nazi propaganda and banking records found in the Supreme Court basement. Network, financial links to the Mano Mano connection confirmed. Phase 2, Maritime Research, 2022 to 2025. Necochea, O-boat, confirmation of a German Type 9 or UA submarine wreck. Mission, Eslabon Perdido expedition confirmed the wreck at a depth of 28 meters. Scuttling, evidence of deliberate scuttling to conceal clandestine landings. Phase 3, Hidden Troves, 2017. Argentine Hall, 75 artifacts discovered behind a bookshelf in Becar, including Nazi busts. Medical items, discovery of Macon, medical artifacts in the collection. Phase 4, Jungle Hideouts, 2019. Misiones Complex, stone structures in Teuquare intended as a Nazi leadership refuge. Bormann, dismissal. Genetic testing debunked the presence of Martin Bormann at the site. Phase 5, Systemic Research, 2024 to 2026. The Antarctic Pulse, 2026. OSINT data revealed geometric anomalies 120 meters deep in Queen Maud Land. Mercury Theory, logistic links found between U-boat ballast and Project Valkyrie 2 propellant research.
So World War II has been over for about 2 months, and the world is, finally taking a collective breath.
Right. The fighting in Europe is finished. Treaties are being hammered out.
Exactly. The massive machinery of this global conflict is supposedly winding down. But then, on July 10th, 1945, out of this heavy morning fog off the coast of Argentina.
Down in Mar del Plata.
Yeah, Mar del Plata. This heavily armed Nazi U-boat just quietly breaches the surface to surrender. And, it is months late.
Well, and its internal logs are completely destroyed, too.
Right. The deck gun has been completely dismantled and just, dumped somewhere in the ocean. And most importantly, there are 13 massive, heavy containers listed on its original manifest that are just missing.
Vanished.
So today we are jumping into a truly wild deep dive. For you listening, we're exploring a fascinating synthesis of historical anomalies and modern open source intelligence. It's compiled by an entity calling itself Archive 0.
And the file is simply titled The Antarctic Pulse, case number 001.
Yes. Okay, let's unpack this. Because whether you are a hardcore history buff or just someone who loves a good mystery, this is an incredible exercise in asking what if.
Yeah, it really is a remarkable piece of analytical detective work. I mean, our goal today isn't to validate these claims as undeniable historical fact, but rather to examine the precise way this author has woven together very real, documented gaps in the official record.
Right, we're not taking sides here.
Exactly. It is basically a masterclass in how alternative narratives are constructed when official history leaves behind massive logistical impossibilities.
Well, to understand the supposed secrets Archive 0 claims are buried under the Antarctic ice, we have to start with that submarine in Argentina, right? The U-530, captained by Otto Wermuth.
Yeah, and what immediately flags the attention of Allied intelligence in 1945 isn't just the late arrival. It is the inescapable math of the submarine's journey.
The math is basically the anchor for the whole theory.
Right. Archive 0's analysts lean really heavily on the technical specifications of that specific sub, the type IXC-40 U-boat. They use it to highlight a glaring fuel paradox.
Because the U-530 left its base in Norway in early March. And based on its diesel-electric engines and its total bunker capacity, that specific submarine had a maximum autonomous fuel window of about 2 months.
And that is stretching it to the absolute limit.
Right. But it was at sea for 4 months.
Exactly. And a diesel submarine cannot magically stretch its fuel reserves in the open ocean. I mean, it requires physical refueling.
Yeah, you can't just run on fumes.
No. And when you cross-reference the Allied naval blockades operating in the Atlantic during the spring of 1945, there was no surface support network left for them to use.
So the author argues this is mathematical proof of a completely off-the-books supply base somewhere in the southern hemisphere.
A hidden pit stop.
Right. And if you're listening to this and thinking, well, maybe they just drifted on ocean currents to save fuel, I am right there with you. That was my first thought.
It's a logical assumption.
Yeah. But then Archive 0 introduces the second submarine.
Right, because the anomaly drastically deepens a month later. On August 17th, Heinz Schaefer brings the U-977 into that exact same Argentine port to surrender.
And the physical condition of this second boat destroys the drifting theory completely.
Oh, absolutely.
This boat doesn't look like it's been surviving the brutal, corrosive salt water of the South Atlantic for months on end. The archive notes it arrives looking incredibly well-maintained.
Fresh paint, right?
Yeah, fresh paint, no marine rust on the hull. The crew has full food supplies. I mean, it's like your friend driving across the country on a single tank of gas, arriving a month late, and their car still has that new car smell.
It totally defies standard maritime wear and tear.
How does a machine survive double its maximum operational window without a pit stop and look brand new?
What's fascinating here is how military intelligence focuses on these exact logistical impossibilities. I mean, the lack of rust, the full larders, the sheer impossibility of the fuel math.
It all adds up.
Yeah, all these data points strongly pivot away from a desperate oceanic drift. They point strictly toward a dry, fully equipped docking facility, an unmapped supply chain operating entirely outside Allied jurisdiction.
So, if there is a pit stop, where is it? Where on earth could you build a fully functioning naval facility in the 1940s that the Allied forces wouldn't immediately detect?
Well, you can't just hide a submarine base in a coastal cave in South America.
No. So the document points to literally the most hostile environment on the planet.
Antarctica.
Yeah.
Specifically, they pull from Heinrich Himmler's internal notes from 1943. This is regarding a highly classified initiative known as Project Valkyrie II.
Valkyrie II.
Right. The directive explicitly details the creation of a refuge beyond the borders of Europe. Archive 0 posits the engineering corps wasn't looking for a temporary bunker to wait out a surrender.
What were they looking for then?
They were actively building an autonomous sovereign enclave.
Yeah, and they actually had a massive head start on the scouting. The text brings up the 1938 German expedition to Antarctica.
Oh, the flying boats.
Yeah. They flew these heavily modified Dornier flying boats over a massive sector of Queen Maud Land. They were dropping thousands of weighted swastika flags onto the ice to stake a territorial claim.
Which they called New Swabia.
Exactly. But they weren't just dropping flags for propaganda. They found something geologically incredible.
The Schumacher Oasis.
Yes. which is just wild to think about.
It is a profound geological anomaly because amidst the endless freezing expanse of the Antarctic ice shelf, that 1938 expedition photographed an area with flowing freshwater lakes.
And bubbling geothermal springs under all that ice.
Right. The Earth's crust there is highly active, pushing intense heat up to the surface.
Which is a brilliant tactical pivot. If you can't hide a massive facility from aerial reconnaissance or naval patrols above ground, you use the Earth's natural geology against it.
Exactly.
But I have to push back here for a second, because even with hot springs, building a sprawling industrial base under a glacier sounds like science fiction for the 1940s.
That just sounds extreme.
I mean, seriously, why build in an icebox when you could hide in a remote jungle somewhere? How exactly do you build a city in the ice?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the document explains the actual mechanics of the construction. They didn't just dig into the ice.
Okay.
By tapping into those high-temperature geothermal vents, engineers could theoretically carve out massive subglacial domes. The heat of the Earth naturally maintains the internal temperature above freezing, melting the ice upward.
Melting it upward to create a vast cavernous ceiling. So it's like using the Earth as a giant natural space heater.
Precisely. And a mile of ice as the ultimate soundproofing.
Wow.
That ice isn't just a physical roof, it is active camouflage. A kilometer-thick layer of dense, compacted ice naturally absorbs radio frequencies.
Oh, of course it does.
Yeah, and it completely masks the massive thermal emissions a base like that would generate. It renders a sprawling industrial footprint entirely invisible to the tracking technology of the era.
And to prove they had the engineering chops to pull this off, the author points to Project Zement in the Austrian Alps.
Right, the underground factories.
Yeah, this wasn't just theory. They had already tested carving giant underground factories into solid mountain rock to protect weapons manufacturing from Allied bombers.
Which is a huge precedent.
Totally. Archival Zero claims they recovered blueprints for extreme condition ventilation and filtration systems. Systems designed specifically for sub-zero subterranean environments.
Meaning, everything they learned in the Alps was just the testing phase for what they designated Base 211 in Antarctica.
Base 211.
Right. And this raises an important question regarding intent, because an installation of that magnitude, requiring that level of unprecedented engineering, isn't just a panic room.
No, you don't go through all that trouble just to hide.
Exactly. You build a self-sustaining enclave powered by geothermal energy because you need a secure location to continue developing something highly sensitive.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this brings us right back to the U-boats and those 13 missing containers.
The cargo.
Yes. Archival Zero zeroes in on a very specific, highly unusual item on the missing cargo lists. 400 tons of mercury.
Which is, an absolutely staggering volume of a highly volatile liquid metal element.
Wait, mercury? My mind immediately goes to heavy industry or manufacturing, but 400 tons is astronomical.
Yeah.
What on earth are you doing with that much volatile liquid at the South Pole?
Well, Archival Zero connects this specific cargo directly to the infamous Die Glock project.
The bell.
Yeah, the bell. Okay, we need to explain this because this is where the physics get wild.
Right, so the document details how Die Glock supposedly functioned. It wasn't a conventional weapon.
No.
The theory posits that the device utilized highly pressurized, counter-rotating cylinders filled with liquid mercury.
That sounds dangerous.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And by spinning this heavy metal at massive speeds under really high electrical voltage, the engineers were supposedly attempting to generate torsion fields or high-energy plasma fields.
The truth has been hidden for decades beneath miles of ancient ice, protected by government silence and international treaties. But what we have uncovered is only the tip of the iceberg. The real story is just beginning to surface. Stay with us, for the answers lie much deeper than we ever imagined.